Welcome to another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Today I am joined by Kat Papé. She is the founder of B&B Equity Group, a short-term rental business out of Seattle, Washington. Kat was also a student on the first Legends X class ever, which was super fun. And today we are going to talk about green cleaning, how you can clean your units without using chemicals, because a lot of people are sensitive to chemicals. So something I've never really talked about in this podcast. So I'm super excited to dive into it. So Kat, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jasper. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to dive into it. And we were just chatting a bit, before we started recording. And one thing that we teach on Legends X is really dialing in your guest avatar. And what I've always noticed is that a lot of people start by solving their own problem, right? So they stay at Airbnbs and they experience a certain problem, and then they start solving it for themselves and really honing in on that guest avatar. So love to hear, because that's something that you kind of went through as well. So I'd love to hear more about that. But before we get into that, can you give us a quick introduction on your hosting business? I know you've been hosting for a long time, since 2014. So
Yes, yeah, I started with my own home in 2014, basically as a means to save my home because I had just been through a divorce and rare disease and brain surgery and crazy stuff. And so I loved it. It kind of combines all my previous experience in interior design and owning a business, and it just expanded from there. So I now also manage other people's homes as short-term rentals in Washington State.
awesome, sweet. Yeah, and what you're mentioning that you use a lot of your former experience. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. So I owned my first business when I was 24. It was in San Antonio, Texas, and I did basically interior design and gift at that point. And then when I moved to Washington State, I became a sales rep for manufacturers in furniture and home decor. Opened 2 retail stores in Spokane, Washington. That was mid to high-end furniture, interior design. We did staging for companies, things like that. And then, I kind of just went through this major life crisis. And so as I emerged, I ended up having to turn in my home into a short-term rental because renters were, doing their thing, and it was difficult. The recession was going on, or we were just coming out of the recession. And I used my skills as business. I watched the market. When I lived in Anacortes, north of Seattle, I worked with real estate investors and I was doing the number crunchings for their flips. And so I turned that into the short-term rental side, started watching the numbers and evaluating whether or not it was a viable means for me to save my home.
Yeah,
And it was, and it was fun. And I designed it for the guest base that I would be serving, which is Western Washington. This was in Spokane, so it was Western Washington, Canada, Montana. And that's what I still do today. So I design the homes, based on customer base, the architecture of the home, and of course, all guest focused, very guest centric, what the guest needs are while they're staying in another home.
sure. Let's dive into the green cleaning, because that's something that if you would ask me yesterday, like is there even like a chemical free cleaning product, I would have been, I wouldn't be sure what to answer. So and sensitivity to chemicals, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So going through a health crisis is all I can, imagine. My body changed a lot. I became very sensitive to non-organic foods. I have to have everything organic. And even as a young adult, I was a little sensitive to certain synthetic fragrances. But I have an aunt who she can't go to the grocery store in any shops that sell any candles or anything. She's that sensitive. And so I was familiar with it, but as I progressed, even as I healed, these chemical sensitivities remain. So the synthetic fragrances are huge. And so I had to learn how to clean my own home chemical free. And so as I do my short-term rentals, that is a commitment that I make to everybody, because it is such a widespread and growing segment of the population. I was telling you earlier, I just looked it up last night. One of the government websites has studies, and it showed that 39% of Americans have multi-chemical sensitivities. And so it's a huge portion of our population. And it definitely fits a need. So it's very hard to travel when you have these and stay at places and not be sick.
Right, right. And that's kind of mind blowing that 39% of people have sensitivities to chemicals, and most of those people probably don't know about it, right?
Well, with this study, they divided into two groups, people who had been medically diagnosed by their doctors, and then people who are just reporting, these are the sensitivities that I have, which is me. I've never gone to the doctor for it. I don't need to. If I walk into a space that has synthetic fragrances, it is an instant migraine and nausea and very, very sick. And so, so these people are aware of it. I think the number is actually higher for the people that aren't aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, we probably all have some level of sensitivity to chemicals, right? But we're probably not aware of it. Like, for example, me, like I notice like I randomly have to sneeze a couple times. You know, it happens like a couple times a month. I have no idea why. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's a chemical sensitivity too.
And it could be, and you're just not aware of what it is in your environment yet that's doing that. Yeah, it's not fun, but you know, and there's things that like I was never aware of. So your commercial dryer sheets are a huge neurotoxin. And so unless you get headaches or something from it, you would never think that you shouldn't be using your dryer sheets. But the fact is whether you react or you feel a reaction to it, it is still a neurotoxin. It's crazy. So it's kind of eye-opening to realize like how many things have chemicals in them. And one of the problems is when you're looking for chemical-free products is that, manufacturers in the natural lifestyle has become so popular, manufacturers will throw some of the essential oils in something and call it natural, and people will believe it because but unless you look at the ingredients, and if you know what the ingredients are, then what they're doing is just throwing it in with the other chemicals, and there's still an issue. So I've had to weed through those. And there's a website that analyzes beauty products and cleaning products, and they get down even to the ingredients that aren't individually listed. They get all the chemicals and products and they'll rate them, which is a good resource.
Awesome. Do you have that handy, the resource?
Yeah,
URL?
it's ewg.org.
ewdg.org. Okay, that's pretty
Yes.
simple.
It's the environmentalworkinggroup.org, but it's EWG.
Yeah, because this kind of leads into my next question is like, how do you know that a cleaning product is green or chemical free, and where can you buy these products?
Yeah, so yeah, great question. So if you don't recognize the ingredients, one thing I've found to be true is when you're looking at the ingredients and it says fragrance, but it doesn't give the source, you can pretty much bet that is a synthetic fragrance. I can tell because I react immediately to it. But so I avoid anything that just says fragrance on there. Even if they have essential oils in there, if they've added fragrance, then no. The other thing, when I used to represent an all natural candle company, is that anything that has a sweet smell is a synthetic. So if there's an underlying sweet smell, that's a synthetic fragrance. But the best resource is the website, ewg.org. You plug in the brand and they'll bring up all their products and they'll rate each individual product. And so that's a great resource to have.
Yeah, I'm checking it out right now, actually.
So yeah.
Are green cleaning products, are they a lot more expensive, just like organic food is more expensive?
They can be, but they've actually come down in price. There's a lot on the market now that are viable great green cleaning product. We live in a really good time for people like me because we have a lot of options. A lot of grocery stores have a natural section and we'll sell it there. I buy mine from Amazon. You can buy them in bulk. Thrive Market is a health food, grocery, beauty store that's online. They sell things at discounts. So yeah, there's plenty of places to buy it. And what I have found is that it really doesn't add that much to it's not undoable. It doesn't add a lot to my cleaning, my bottom line. I use hydrogen peroxide as a disinfectant instead of bleach. It's just as effective as bleach, and it's not a lung irritant. I walk into a hotel room that uses bleach in their towels or in their rooms, and my lungs feel like they're just squeezing shut. So a lot of people have problems with that. A lot of people have asthma, and they don't realize that bleach is a huge issue for them. So it might cost a little bit more, but not substantially, not enough to really deter anybody from doing it.
Yeah, and I think for you personally, you mentioned that you stayed at 4 Airbnbs in the last week, one of which was your own, and that was the only one where you didn't have any reactions, right?
Yeah, and so that was interesting to me because I haven't really had that much of a reaction in so many places. But what was interesting is, and this was in Seattle, so I loved it because in the pictures they had really great products like Mrs. Meyer soaps and all that stuff. And so I really didn't think about asking about synthetic fragrance. And it's really kind of a hard question to ask because most people aren't doing that. And so every one of them, one was bleach, one was the plugins. People had the plugins, and I walk in and it's just like hitting a wall. So I threw those out, onto the back patio and opened all the windows, and still had some issues, but it made it better. And then the other one actually didn't use any synthetic, smelly things except for the scented kitchen bags. And it was underneath the sink, and I couldn't open the cabinet. It would just hit me, again, instant headache, nausea. So I had to have my own little trash bag, separately from the rest. But yeah, every single one of them, I was getting hit pretty hard. It didn't make for a fun week in Seattle.
Yeah, I can imagine. And just out of curiosity, why were you staying at so many different Airbnbs?
Well, yeah. So, post lockdown, as you know, it's just been crazy. We're very, very busy. I couldn't stay in my own because we were booked, except for that one night. And for the amount of time that I need to be in Seattle, I could not find any place that had that time frame open. So I had to divide it into different segments, but it was kind of fun, checking out the different places too. But yeah, I just couldn't book anything for the time frame that I needed.
So so Seattle is pretty busy right now.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. It's always good to stay at a bunch of Airbnb, especially in your own market, because you can get to see what the competition is doing, right?
Exactly. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. So when I'm sure there's people listening right now who are probably thinking, they probably don't know much about the chemicals, and they probably never really considered this, just like myself. But I think it could be like a really interesting niche, right? Because like you mentioned, there's so many people who have sensitivities to chemicals, and I think it's something that's also kind of a trend that people become more health conscious, and they're more conscious about the environment and the stuff that we are exposed to. So are you currently like really targeting that guest avatar that is looking for like a green, chemical free short-term rental?
I mentioned it in my listings, but especially after this experience, it's something that I really want to zero in on and really put it out there more. And it's multifaceted too, because again, even if our cleaners aren't aware of it or personally having issues with it like I am, they're in homes every day cleaning and using these products. And over time, what is going to be their health issues due to being around chemicals so much more than the average person.
Mm.
So I really want to focus on that, not only for the guests, but for our cleaners, for the environment. It's just the best, the better or best option out there. What I'm also going to be doing is adding a tab on my webpage that goes through the green cleaning, and will have links to like the products that I use, and really help other hosts or anyone really to be able to make those switch and to recognize like which products they need to change.
Yeah. Do you use do you have anything in your titles where it's like, green cleaned or chemical free?
I don't at the moment. I change my titles pretty often, but I actually haven't done it in a while. It's just, yeah. I've slipped on that area. So yeah, but like I said, after this, I'm shifting how I'm doing my listings and targeting like with my titles and things like that. It'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see.
the reason I'm asking is because I just stayed in an Airbnb in the Dominican Republic. And as I was going through the Airbnb listings, like whenever I book an Airbnb, I'm always observing myself, my own behavior, right? I'm always observing like, hey, how do I make this decision? Because that can give some insight into things that I can change on my own listings. And one thing I realized when I booked this unit was I was looking for a very specific thing, because I wanted to go kite surfing. And then I found a listing where literally I could see, there was a picture of the living room and you could see the view of the water outside. And I saw some kites in that photo.
Nice.
So instantly I was like, all right, that's where I want to stay, because I don't know exactly where the kite spot is. I'm not familiar with the area. So just knowing like, okay, well, if I stay at this place, I know I can just walk onto the beach and kite, because that's the proof is right there in the photo. So it's like this one sort of like one-dimensional decision making process that I notice in myself a lot, and I can imagine it might be for people that have sensitivities to chemicals. They just see the title like chemical free. That might just be for them the decision that's like, okay, boom, I'm staying there. That's all I need to know.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point. And yeah, something that I've totally not taken advantage of the way that I should. And I have had, people like me will, we're used now to searching out the labels and really doing things, but I need to make it easier for them. But people with chemical sensitivities will tend to read through the whole listing, where a lot of guests don't. And then they'll verify, like, what exactly do you use? Are you using this? Or are you using that? Because again, they're in the same situation as me, is where, so many products will say all natural, but they just throw some things in on top of their chemicals. And so they'll verify. But yeah, my title, you actually brought up a good point about the picture. I should probably do some nice photography showing the products that are used, so that people can have a peace of mind, people that are really looking for green cleaning for whatever reason. So yeah, that's excellent point.
Yeah, I'm even thinking you might be able to just Photoshop your featured image and putting like I don't know if there's any logos that kind of represent this, or just a small like chemical free with some stars around it, or something.
Yeah.
Something that stands out where people that are specifically looking for that are instantly gonna see it, right?
This is where Canva is your best friend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Canva is amazing. We talked a bit before we started recording about pet friendly Airbnbs, and you mentioned that your Airbnb is pet friendly, and which is interesting because you would think that, I know that a lot of people have sensitivities to what do you call it, allergens?
Yes. Dander, it's usually the pet dander that they're allergic to, but they have pet allergies. Yes.
And you found like a really good organic spray that gets rid of those things.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and it's an allergen spray. It's not specifically, just for pets, but it was back in 2014. So again, going back to the avatar, before I found you and Eric, I was, automatically solving my own issues. And so my former husband and I had Airedales. They're huge dogs. And then and a poodle, a miniature poodle. So traveling with the poodle, not so big of a deal. We could find some places that would take small dogs, but to travel with a large dog, no one. So, how do you travel or move or anything when you have pets? And so I've always been pet friendly, and all size and all breeds. My insurance company's fine with it. And but you have, the allergy issue. So when I first began, story behind it, as I was setting up, of course, I posted my listing and it had pet friendly. It's a great niche to be in for multiple reasons. And a woman contacted me before she booked and said, "Hey, I know you're new, but my boys have a lot of really severe allergies to pets. And can you tell me if you have anybody before us, if I book these dates, anybody before us that is bringing pets?" And I said, "Well, not at the moment, but no guarantees." Sure enough, I get a booking that's back to back to hers, right before hers, with dogs. And so they came and went. It's called Easy Air. It's organic allergen spray. And I use it on all, I tend not to do carpets in my homes, but I use it on any carpeted area, rugs, furniture, anything that has fabric on it. And the next family came and went. She didn't say a word. So I checked with her and said, "Hey, how did it go with your boys?" And she said, "Absolutely no problems whatsoever." And so that was 8 years ago. And I've tested it with people who will contact me about their pet allergies. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say they didn't even need to use their medications, that they couldn't tell there were any pets there at all. So it's an amazing product. And so, yeah, I can do both. It's great.
Yeah, that's amazing. And where do you buy this product?
You can buy it in like chewy.com, but I buy it on a website called Amazing, and it has a hyphen, amazingsolutions.com. And I buy it in bulk.
Amazingsolutions.com. Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll put these links in the show notes. So if you're listening to this and you wanna find all the links, just go to getpaidforyourpet.com and you'll find the show notes with all the links. Awesome. So let's see. Let's talk quickly about your experience in Legends X. What's the number one thing that you learned during the program?
I knew you were going to ask me that. That is really hard to nail down, but I'll say one of the reasons why I joined was one, for the support of you guys and the community. I love that you guys were doing the small pods, because part of my story is not only did I go through divorce, but both my parents died. Basically, my support system was wiped out. And so I'm just kind of a lone ranger. And so it's really important to have that support. But as far as Legends X, another reason why I joined was I was having trouble. I was having difficulty choosing my tech stack. Which is awesome. There's so many options out there. And I was just kind of trying to figure out which ones were going to be the best fit for me and that kind of thing. So the tech stack, I think, is at the moment the number one thing that I got out of Legends X. But the whole entire thing, the whole entire process, I think I mentioned to you guys before, kicked my butt, but in a great way. It was really motivating, and I love the digital book, the play guide, the playbook, and just the organization. I've talked to other managers and stuff who've owned businesses and things, and I have to say, out of all my businesses, the short-term rental, the management has like the most spoke to the wheels. There's so much dynamics to it that it can be overwhelming. And so you have to have the organization, you have to have the systems in place. And so Legends X was amazing, absolutely amazing. It took me from being like very overwhelmed, and it held me back from expanding. I felt like everything, like I just wasn't ready to expand yet. And it just really kind of gave me a sense of calm, like, okay, I can do this. I've got this in place now.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right. This short-term rental business is so many moving parts, and it's so dynamic, and there's so much going on. I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize when they get into it. They
Yeah.
think, oh, how hard can it be? Just put on create a listing on Airbnb. And I remember when I first launched my book, I Paid for Your Pet, back in 2014. People would always ask me this question. They would always say, you wrote a book about Airbnb. I mean, Airbnb isn't that like really simple? You just create a listing and then that's it. And I was like, well, there's a couple more things that you might want to consider, but but yeah, you start managing like 2, 3, 4 listings, and before you know it, it almost becomes like a full-time job, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's my job. I mean, it is my source of income. I think people are amazed at that.
Yeah,
But it's what I do and I love it. And it's exciting, but it's fast paced and it can overtake you if you're not prepared for it. So
yeah, yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've learned
thank
a
you.
lot about this topic. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, just I guess if anybody has any questions or anything, they can connect with me through my website. Like I said, I will be getting a page up for that as well, but it's not there yet. But it's just bnbequitygroup.com.
bnbequitygroup.com. Awesome. We'll put that up there as well. And are you currently taking on new properties in the Seattle
I
region?
I am in the Seattle area, especially, and I will have some openings in the Spokane area too. So
Awesome. Sweet. Well, thanks again for being on the show. Really
thank
appreciate
you.
your time. And yeah, well, I'll see you. I'll see you. I'm sure I'll see you in the Luna group.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having
Awesome.
me.
Thanks, Kate.
Okay.
Thanks, Kate. And to the listeners, thank you for listening. And we'll be back, of course, next week and in a couple of days as well with the episode that I do with Eric. So thanks for listening, and until next time.
Thank you.
Boom.